Thanks for visiting our channel again. Hollywood originally considered Cybill Shepherd an icon, a face worthy of $1 million, with golden locks that gleam like the sun in the South. She caused quite a stir in Hollywood with her very first role. She went on to perform at the Golden Globes in subsequent years. People have said it more than once. She was born to be a star. However, she would eventually be consumed by that very attention. Cybill Shepherd's fall from grace was precipitated by a series of passionate but scandalous romances, an astonishing romance with a married director, and conflicts with the TV industry's hidden power structure. Once the cheers died down, she had to deal with the reality that no amount of preparation had ever given her. Cancer of the skin, excruciating agony that seemed unbearable, and the isolation of a person who was once too renowned to find pardon. Why did a once popular star eventually fall from grace? Why did Cybill decide to stop hiding anything at the end of her honest, intense, and unapologetic journey, as recounted in her memoir, Cybill Disobedience? She decided to spill the beans, and you're going to find out why. The conservative yet peaceful city of Memphis, Tennessee was the birthplace of Cybill Lynn Shepherd on February 18, 1950. She came from a middle-class background. William Shepherd ran a modest business, while Patty stayed at home to raise their daughter. She had two younger brothers, William and Terry, and was the middle child of three. A peculiar but distinctive name, Cybill, was a blend of her grandpa Cy and her father Bill. At some point, it would become a household name in Hollywood. Cybill was noticeable even as a child. She was hard to miss with her striking golden hair, pale complexion, and expressive eyes. Her charisma, not her physical attractiveness, was the thing that stuck with everyone. Unlike most Southern girls her age, she stood out at East High School. She never sat about doing nothing. People she liked were the ones she pursued. She would have been subject to suspension had anyone discovered that she had once skipped class in order to try out for a modeling job. It was irrelevant to her, though. Life was created for Cybill to be extraordinary. She competed in the Miss Teenage Memphis pageant in 1966, when she was 16 years old. She was named Miss Teenage America after winning and representing her city. Even though she didn't advance, the title of Miss Congeniality was a modest but significant honor bestowed upon her. It proved that there was more to her than meets the eye. Although it rendered her susceptible to exploitation at times, that quality would ultimately lead her to great success. At a young age, Cybill started modeling alongside her schooling. She became Model of the Year when she was just 18 years old. Beginning her career as a Memphis high school student, she went on to become the face of L'Oreal and graced the cover of Glamour magazine. Her life was forever altered by just one photograph. While waiting in line at the grocery store, director Peter Bogdanovich, who was casting a female lead at the time, seen Cybill's likeness on a magazine cover. Without hesitation, he contacted her agency and inquired, "Who is this girl?" Cybill received an audition invitation for the Last Picture show a few weeks down the road. The part was hers. This marked both her cinematic debut and the first public examination of her personal life. Cybill departed from Memphis unaccompanied. Through her own effort, an unapologetic demeanor, and a defiance of living a substandard existence, she earned everything. However, it was precisely this quality that would eventually make her both a beloved and feared figure in Hollywood. Cybill Shepherd made a memorable debut in the film industry. She played the role of JC in a 1971 film by Peter Bogdanovich. Classic and remarkably daring for its era, the black-and-white picture The Last Picture show stars Pharaoh. Sexuality, isolation, and the subtle cracks in the armor of West Texas adolescents weren't censored in this film. In her now famous naked moment, Cybill portrayed a stunningly gorgeous, yet clinically frigid young woman. Removing one's clothing in a living room with see-through glass, exposing one's body and emotions. At the tender age of 21, she was far from old. Cybill accessed something essential and raw in film: presence, despite her lack of training and expertise in acting. Surprisingly for a model in her debut film role, she received an immediate Golden Globe nomination for New Star of the Year. The spotlight wasn't solely on Cybill, though. So did the movie. With 2 wins and 8 nominations, The Last Picture Show was a major Oscar contender. Many consider it to be the best American picture of all time and a landmark of the 70s cinematic era. From a personal perspective, Cybill Shepherd views the function of J.C. Pharaoh was more than simply her first film. Her cinematic career took off after that. Hollywood began to view her as more than just a model-turned-actress after that performance. Someone even went as far as to declare her a phenomenon. On top of that, she got everyone in the business to notice her. It is not possible to manage all forms of beauty. She went on to star in 1972's The Heartbreak Kid and 1970's IXS Taxi Driver after her breakthrough in The Last Picture Show. Despite her brief appearance in Taxi Driver, her character Betsy, whose steely look was mixed with vulnerability, became the center of attention for both Robert De Niro's Travis Bickle and the viewer. Cybill, however, continued beyond the realm of cinema. Since she was a teenager, music has quietly played a role in her life. She followed her second passion, singing, after she had made a name for herself in Hollywood. Her first studio album, Cybill Does It, was released in 1974 with Cole Porter producing. A recital of timeless jazz songs performed with a gentle, romantic, and undeniably feminine touch. Cybill opted for traditional jazz, where technique couldn't hide an absence of emotion, rather than chasing mainstream music, which was easier. A musical diva was not her destiny. Those who listened attentively were moved to tears by her music. Cybill Shepherd continued to release albums in the years that followed, including Mad About the Boy, 1990, Cybill Gets Better, 1992, and At Long Last Love, 2006. Cybill would play at tiny cultural events, jazz clubs, and lounges outside of the studio, not to make a buck, but to let her music do the talking. She possessed an emotional honesty and an unfiltered charisma that is unusual among big stars, even though her voice wasn't technically explosive. Once she entered television, music followed. She deftly incorporated her passion for singing into her role on the 1995 to 1998 sitcom Cybill. Every time Cybill Sheridan would unexpectedly go from snark to song, singing passionately in the middle of mundane events, as if to convey the idea that, despite all the chaos, music remained her sanctuary. Viewers were taken aback. Cybill decided to put her acting and singing careers on hold to have a family. Clementine Ford, her first daughter, was born to her in the late 1970s. Cybill has stated in the past that she could have more roles, but that she would never have another moment like the one she had with her daughter. She took a break from television to raise her family, but she made a triumphant return in 1977 with guest spots on shows like Fantasy Island. By that point, Cybill had transformed. After her meteoric rise to fame, she settled into a familiar yet enigmatic role as the woman viewers anticipated each week. Cybill Shepherd's career took a stunning turn in 1985 when she took on a job completely out of her comfort zone. A bankrupt former model named Maddie Hayes is thrown into running a quirky detective firm with her unstable partner, David Addison, played by Bruce Willis. Moonlighting, an ABC romantic comedy detective series, was the show in question. The show's fast-paced dialogue, comedic elements, and sexual tension made Moonlighting a hit. The writing were crisp and reminiscent of theater plays. What really held audiences' attention, though, was the explosive chemistry between Cybill Shepherd and Bruce Willis. Their tension was as taut as a violin string, and it was simultaneously charming, alluring, and delicate. Nothing was as simple as clicking a mouse. Their innate chemistry and high energy levels were the show raisers, qualities that no acting school could ever instill. Cybill won 2 Golden Globes for her portrayal of Maddie Hayes in 1986 and 1987, respectively, for Best Actress in a Television Series, Musical, or Comedy. Reports at the time claimed she was primetime television's most beautiful face. According to TV Guide, Maddie and David were one of the most iconic TV couples of that decade. By turning a genre show into something studied in screenwriting classrooms, Moonlighting also raised the profile of American television. There were episodes that completely disregarded genre norms, such as one that was more in the vein of a musical and another in which characters addressed the audience directly, so breaking the fourth wall. This breakthrough had Cybill at its core, not only a stunning role model, but also a strong, self-reliant woman who never needed men for support. The makers of Moonlighting have said in multiple interviews that the show would not have had its own identity if it hadn't been for Cybill. In addition to her acting role, she had a hand in developing the show's characteristic style of rapid-fire, clever, and multi-layered language. Behind the scenes, tensions started to escalate, despite Moonlighting's success on screen. Disagreement became more apparent between Cybill Shepherd and Bruce Willis, the exact duo responsible for the show's success. Things escalated from mild disputes into full-blown brawls. Neither of them was willing to give in. They were both stubborn and determined. In his memoir, co-star Curtis Armstrong said that, although Bruce was lauded for being a laid-back guy, the high-pressure atmosphere of the program was just as taxing on both of them. In an interview years later, Cybill stated frankly that men are referred to as decisive when they yell, whereas women are referred to as divas when they speak out. The media failed to comprehend that Cybill's pregnancy with twins postponed production and instead held her responsible for the show's waning popularity. As Bruce Willis became a household name thanks to the Die Hard films, his schedule and interests changed. Since they could hardly see eye to eye off-screen, the love intensity that existed on screen began to dissipate, and they began to film together less frequently. The last several seasons were the breaking point because of how stifling the creative and working environment became. Moonlighting, which had been praised for its unique content, was formally canceled in 1989. At first glance, Cybill appeared to have made the leap from film to television, achieved new heights, and won consecutive Golden Globes. However, she was dealing with gender bias, pressure, and the inevitable conflicts that came with working with a co-star behind the scenes. Someone who was once an ideal co-star on screen is now just another face in the audience. Despite the stresses, she once stated, she didn't regret Moonlighting. They made the screen feel more realistic than it actually was. However, it was quite expensive. One thing became crystal evident to Cybill Shepherd after she began Moonlighting. An ominous cloud accompanies every achievement. A darker shadow will be visible behind a brighter illumination. The 1995 season marked Cybill Shepherd's triumphant comeback to television. She was completely free to express her creativity this time. The middle-aged actress Cybill Shepherd, who was once relatively famous, now juggles casting calls for mother-in-law roles, raises her children, and clashes with an industry that is increasingly preoccupied with youth, as the sitcom Cybill chronicles. The character, according to Cybill, was, simply speaking, what I used to suppress. The woman whose reaction it was formerly celebrated for her beauty, but subsequently disregarded when her star began to fade. Not only did Shepherd star in the series, but she also co-produced it, had a hand in writing the scripts, and guided its overall tone and message. She succeeded. Cybill went viral because it gave a voice to issues that American television has always shied away from discussing. Infidelity, midlife sexuality, the double standard in Hollywood, the pressure to keep up with younger actors, being a single mother, and the silent loneliness that many women experience. Critics said she embodied a brand of feminist-tinged sophisticated humor similar to Lucille Ball. This was the 90s Lucille Ball. Christine Baranski took up the trophy for Best Supporting Actress, and Cybill received her third Golden Globe for the performance. Throughout its initial 3 seasons, Cybill maintained a continuous ranking in CBS's top 20 most viewed shows and garnered 12 Emmy nominations. There was a cultural impact from Cybill beyond her business success. Big Little Lies, The Good Wife, Grace and Frankie, and subsequent series all prominently featured older women, breaking new ground. Cybill was the first television series in which a female character was not defined by the men she loved, as Christine Baranski confessed in an interview. However, a dark reality lay beneath the mirth. During an interview with SiriusXM in 2018, Cybill discussed the show's abrupt cancellation due to her rejection of a sexual advance from Lee Moonves, who was the powerful CEO of CBS at the time. While they were having a private meal, Moonves had a few drinks and offered to drive her home. She gently but firmly declined. Despite the contract, he soon started making excessive demands, meddling with the show's content, and then abruptly ordered its cancellation. Many years later, Moonves was compelled to step down after being accused of sexual misconduct by numerous women. Once disregarded, Cybill's narrative is now viewed as illuminating the power dynamics that have ensnared women in Hollywood for many years. Even though Cybill Shepherd never got an apology, she also never waited for one. Perhaps Cybill might have continued for a few more seasons if she had agreed that night, she remarked in a public speech. However, I did not come here to compromise my honor for the sake of continuing to watch a sitcom. Although Cybill Shepherd's television career peaked between 1985 and 1995, it was far from over. A remarkable cinematic career had already been made out of her before she became the primetime queen of the 80s. Both Taxi Driver, 1976, and The Heartbreak Kid, 1972, shown that she was more than a gorgeous face. She possessed the rare ability to play emotionally distant roles with pinpoint accuracy. Following her groundbreaking debut in The Last Picture Show, that time served as her assertion of value, proving that Cybill hadn't been lucky. After taking a break to have a family, she subtly made a triumphant return to television in the early 1980s, with guest appearances on shows like Fantasy Island, 1983, and others. It wasn't a dramatic return, but rather a subtle preparatory step toward the breakthrough in Moonlighting 2 years down the road. At about the same time, Cybill began a new adventure, a musical one. Though it failed to chart, her 1974 debut jazz album revealed a different side of her, one that was soft-spoken, dogged, and unconcerned with passing fads. Cybill Shepherd persisted even after her show was canceled. Despite her lack of prominent roles, she persisted in acting and left an impression, particularly in her portrayal of a lesbian mother in The L Word. Guest starring on shows like No Ordinary Family, Criminal Minds, and Psych was a common occurrence for her in the 2000s. In addition to At Long Last Love, 2006, and Cybill Gets Better, 1992, she has released further jazz albums at the same time. Never stop refining, never giving in to formulas that appeal to the masses. Cybill wasn't defined by a single event, as her entire path makes evident. Every one of her chapters, no matter how great or modest, was a genuine piece of resilience. She was that kind of artist. In her own unique way, she radiated, burnt, and then radiated again. Cybill Shepherd was an up-and-coming model who was attempting to make it big in Hollywood before she got renowned on The Last Picture Show. Cybill Disobedience recounted her experiences in New York City as an art and anthropology student, when she came to the realization that shame surrounding nakedness was a product of cultural bias. This conviction played a major factor in her taking the role of JC in The Last Picture Show, which featured a contentious naked scene, which was a life-altering decision. She was in a relationship with John Bruno, a rich restaurateur who was passionate about Ferraris and a master chef at the time. But he was quite direct when he told Cybill, "If you do that scene, I'll never marry you." After learning she was going to perform a naked scene, couples disbanded not long after. It set the tone for Cybill's relationships going forward, following her heart no matter the cost. Cybill Shepherd's first real acting friendship was with Jeff Bridges, whom she met on set of The Last Picture Show. They immediately started hanging together after work, and she gushed about him as a beautiful man, a nice, gentle, and likable co-star. Although there was no official contract, the relationship went beyond that of a simple business partnership. As she ventured into the uncharted territory of Hollywood, she experienced her first genuine relationship. However, a week later, Jeff had to go for reserve training. Director Peter Bogdanovich, whose wife Polly Platt was expecting their second child at the time, filled in for her during that brief absence. As he put it, "Jeff is departing. My loneliness is constant," Cybill said simply. Bogdanovich, an older, powerful, and sophisticated director, was undeniably attractive to her, and she hesitated not to acknowledge his advances. Cybill spilled the beans to Jeff when he got back. "Be careful," Bridges urged gently, without becoming furious. But in that stillness, Cybill appeared to grasp the gravity of the situation. A choice had been taken that could not be reversed. For 8 years, she was in a committed relationship with Bogdanovich. They were both the most scandalous and golden couple in Hollywood, living together and making pictures together. After Bogdanovich abandoned his family, Cybill was unfairly accused of being a homewrecker, a reputation she would maintain for the following decade. From it was anything from a straightforward relationship. Tragically, their love was also a source of pain for one another. Bogdanovich had an extramarital affair while shooting St. Jack in Singapore. Despite her knowledge of the situation, Cybill chose to remain mute throughout her visit. The flip side is that she was also unfaithful. There they were, laid out in her narrative. Along with her co-star Charles Grodin, there is a waiter and an employee. It was never until dawn that she had a conversation with Grodin. She said, "To those on the outside looking in, Cybill seemed to have it total. Notoriety, a collaboration with a renowned director, and a meteoric career. There was always, nevertheless, emptiness on the inside. According to her writings, she never intended to cheat on Peter. If you never truly had someone, how can you cheat on them? There was a lot of freedom and a lot of torture in her connection with Bogdanovich. It was both the catalyst for Cybill's rise to fame and the source of her subsequent seclusion. It had a profound impact on her life and work for many years. In the midst of her relationship with Bogdanovich coming to an end, Cybill had an intimate encounter with Elvis Presley, whom she characterized as having an aroma sweet like sugar and sweat, rather than the cheap perfume of other celebrities. It was a one-time event, but it made an effect. According to Cybill, Elvis came around to the subject of sex after initially holding some very conservative views on the matter. Regardless, she documented that she enjoyed herself in Elvis's bed but was unable to get any sleep there. I could not stand by while he took medications for both sleep and wakefulness. Cybill was in a relationship with Don Johnson at the time she was filming The Long Hot Summer. According to her recollection, we spent a split second on the porch before rushing to go into bed. Johnson slept with a hairstylist on set after a performance she likened to devouring sweets when you're starving, rapid, intense, and over in 5 minutes. Cybill had an unresolved affair with Bruce Willis while filming Moonlighting. It was clear that they clicked. They shared an off-screen kiss, but the romance never materialized. She said that Willis would force a massive camel tongue into my throat during sequences where we were kissing. Cybill wed David Ford in 1978, a man she had dated while still seeing Bogdanovich, marking her departure from short-lived relationships. Clementine, their daughter, was born in 1979. Infidelity on Ford's part led to the dissolution of the marriage in 1982. During their divorce, Cybill was awarded full custody of their child, and Ford received only $15,000 after an altercation between the two that began at a dental clinic. Bogdanovich threw a crystal ashtray at Ford. While pregnant with twins, she wed chiropractor Bruce Oppenheim in 1987. While she was getting treatment for her back issue on set of Moonlighting, they crossed paths. She got right back to work after the wedding. The honeymoon never happened. A year after the twins were born, the marriage ended. The Cybill sitcom's guitarist Robert Martin was Cybill's roommate from 1994 to 1998. The bond between them was like an unofficial marriage, according to her. Disagreements over politics and philosophy led to their eventual breakup. Martin couldn't embrace Cybill's ideals. She was a vocal feminist and progressive. Cybill announced her engagement to Andrei Nikolaevich, a therapist and jeweler originally from Serbia, in 2012. They never tied the knot. Cybill recommitted herself to her Christian beliefs following the split. It was like if my heart had been broken, she remarked. Plus, some of it just wouldn't mend. At that point, I put my faith in Jesus. Cybill Shepherd went undergone painful relationships despite being a woman who once loved without reservation. On the other hand, she emerged from those trials a strong, multifaceted lady. Always spoke the truth, even when few dared to do so. In the face of criticism, scandal, and expense, Cybill Shepherd continued to live her life as if love were everything. However, is love limited to emotions alone? On the other hand, logic and ethics should also be considered. When faced with a choice between acting on impulse or considering the consequences, which would you choose? Cybill Shepherd was a mother who was passionately instinctual throughout her scandal-filled life. There were 2 marriages that didn't work out, so she ended up raising 3 kids alone. She has 3 children: Clementine, who she had with David Ford, and Ariel and Cyrus, who were twins, from her second marriage to Bruce Oppenheim. Despite her troubled professional life and internal struggles, parenthood remained her rock for a long time. As Cybill wisely put it, being a mother is the one thing I couldn't fake. In contrast, acting can often feel like a performance. Her memoir, Cybill Disobedience, shocked readers with its honesty, rawness, and refusal to hold back in 2000, when her life reached a quieter phase. From one-night stands with Elvis Presley and Peter Bogdanovich to everything in between, she detailed every relationship, the angst, the heartbreak, the carefree days of her youth, in it. Despite her demonization by the media, the book was an enormous success and a means of self-emancipation. I was an extremely wicked girl, she wrote. I am not sorry, though. I adhered to the time I spent growing up, and I know I'm not alone. Still, none of her wild years prepared her for the string of losses that followed. Her father died in 2001, her sister Terry in 2009, and by 2012, her mother, the rock of her life, also passed away. The series of losses in such a short span sent Cybill into free fall. I used to think I was invincible, but that's when I learned I was just as fragile as anyone else. The only support she had, her offspring. Even when she was out of the limelight, they motivated her to get back up and keep living. A new kind of turning point, one embraced by gentle joy, occurred to her in 2014. She had a grandchild of her own. The creator of the Sloan and Tate fashion label, Eliza Laydensohn, was her daughter Ariel's spouse. In the midst of all the joy and liberation at the wedding, Cybill wasn't merely there. The entire audience couldn't help but chuckle when she toasted with a hilarious line. She confessed, "I've never seen love this pure," as she embraced her daughter-in-law. After becoming a symbol of defiance, Cybill Shepherd transformed into a mother and grandma who experienced firsthand the independence she had tirelessly battled for. Love, failure, and the ability to get back up again are all aspects of this liberation. Beaming as she witnessed her daughter's aisle. Even though Cybill Shepherd had blonde hair, blue eyes, and perfect skin, the hallmarks of an immortal beauty, she too suffered the destructive effects of disease and old age. Dermatofibrosarcoma protuberans is a severe and uncommon skin cancer that she was diagnosed with in 2001. She first chose to keep her treatment a secret after discovering the tumor on her back, but in 2004, as she was about to enter her third year in remission, she decided to speak out. She informed the Irish Examiner that it alters one's life completely. "If I am able to survive until the third year, I will not have cancer in January." Ever since then, she has been diligent about being checked, and each time, the results have been negative. However, there was more. Like Cybill, irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, went misdiagnosed for 20 years. When I went to the doctor about my pain, he told me I was only imagining it. She recalled that they had told her it was all in her brain. Every day, she tried on a new wardrobe, never knowing how her body would react to the unexpected bloating, cramps, and chronic constipation that she endured for 20 years. The accurate diagnosis was not made until a new doctor was located. In the time after, Cybill took on the role as spokeswoman for the Great Women Initiative, drawing attention to irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, associated with constipation, particularly in females. She was very forthcoming with her narrative at medical events and on television. Going to a party once, I struck up a conversation with a bunch of random people and said, "How's menopause treating you?" While everyone else froze, I felt no shame. We should discuss these matters. In 2007, when she had an unexpected episode of stomach pain, she finally snapped. Crawling down the steps on her hands, Cybill yelled out for assistance after collapsing. According to her, "I truly thought I was dying in the ambulance. My spirit departed from my physical form." She spent months recuperating after enduring for surgeries on her abdomen. Cybill stated that I should not begin to lie about my age at 55. Without the pressure to perform flawlessly on red carpets or avoid paparazzi, her life has never been more authentic. Though clearly Cybill Shepherd, an unflinchingly strong woman who endured hardship, bore the scars of her celebrity, and dared to say what others were afraid to. Saying yes more often, to joy, to new things, even to risk, is something she's gotten better at as she's gotten older, she once said. She does not present a rosy or inspirational image on social media. Rather, she shares grandchild images alongside brief thoughts such as, "I used to be an icon," among others. "Now I'm a survivor." She also frequently participates in women's health campaigns, speaking openly about her 2-decade misdiagnosis with IBS, the near-fatal abdominal pain in 2007, and her long-term battle with skin cancer since 2001. It's not hard to see. Cybill Shepherd is no longer someone Hollywood wants to keep, but she doesn't need anyone to keep her. She has chosen to live in a way that's true to who she is, unbound, unpretentious, and relentlessly honest. At 75, Cybill Shepherd no longer acts regularly, nor does she appear on red carpets, but she hasn't disappeared. She's simply chosen a different way to exist, quietly, just enough, and free from the industry that once lifted her up only to later try to drown her. She lives alone. In a small house in Encino, Los Angeles, a space calm enough for reading, writing, and listening to jazz. Though her health isn't what it used to be, she still keeps a routine of morning walks with her assistant, occasionally spotted in local supermarkets. No makeup, no effort to hide her age. In February 2025, she surprised many by returning to the stage for a performance at Catalina Jazz Club, singing in a show titled Queen of the Lucky Club, A Quiet Declaration. She's still here, still singing, still connecting with her audience on her own terms. Cybill no longer takes new scripts, but she still makes appearances at special events, such as the 40th anniversary of Moonlighting in early 2025, not to indulge in nostalgia, but to remind people that television once gave women a voice that was real and unfiltered. Cybill Shepherd was too beautiful to be ignored, too outspoken to be comfortable, and too free to be controlled. She never hid her scandalous romances, and she never conformed, because to her, freedom was the only true form of happiness. From film to television, from the bold girl in the Last Picture Show to the leading lady who ruled primetime in Moonlighting, Cybill lived fully, and always accepted the price that came with it. At this moment in her life, she has found what truly matters. I don't need Hollywood to remember me. I just need to live without hiding. Would you dare to live honestly, love fearlessly, and make mistakes if it meant risking your reputation and your entire career, like Cybill once did? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you believe this story deserves to be heard, please like, subscribe, and share this video. See you in the one. But enough to show some imprints continue, even without fanfare. To those who truly understood her, like Tippi Hedren and Dakota Johnson, Cybill was never just a former beauty icon. She was a woman who had lost her way, made mistakes, but never lost her sense of self. She didn't hide from her past, didn't shy away from failure. She moved forward with the courage of someone who knew she had nothing left to lose but herself. Even though her career wasn't spotless, Cybill chose to give in places where no cameras rolled. She raised funds for her mother's Shambhala Animal Preserve, supported programs for burn-injured children, and quietly gave to charity the same way she quietly battled illness, without applause, just with purpose. She also ventured into production, co-founding Green Moon Productions with Antonio Banderas. The company didn't make waves, but for her, it wasn't a failure. It was a serious attempt to claim creative control, something she had long craved in a career marked by being directed rather than directing. Perhaps most strangely, Cybill is also remembered for her uncanny resilience. Nominated for the Golden Raspberry Awards a staggering 7 times, and even winning. She didn't get angry or deny it. She embraced it as part of the showbiz game. If you want to play leads, you have to stomach the flops. No one else carried failure on their back and kept going quite like she did. That, too, is a kind of strength. Cybill Shepherd may not be a role model for everyone, but she's the image that those who have fallen, made mistakes, or been cast aside can look to and understand. Living truthfully still matters, even if it takes an entire career to prove it.